So good to see everybody again. I just wanted to start with what we were kind of kicking around before we officially started the meeting here, or whatever it is, as if there's an official to this meeting or whatever. But what have you all heard about going back to campus and things like that? UNC Charlotte right now, we're told to continue to work, remotely until further notice. So that's where we are. What about the rest of you? Beth, let's start with you.
Yes, our office is open as of today, May 11th. From 10 to 2. And my understanding is our expectation is to staff our office with one person only until June 1. And then there may be a change on shifts of groups, like Group A and Group B, starting in June. So more to come on that.
Okay. All right. Lori, what about you at Wake?
So we heard from the dean of the business school is actually chairing Wake's committee about making decisions and getting people back to work and students, et cetera. So we kind of get a little insider update from him every week. And they still have not called summer 2, but he says there's absolutely no way nobody's going to go back for summer 2. They expect to do that, I think, by maybe the 15th or so. And then he's very pessimistic about the fall. He says the social distancing rules, our students come from all over the country. Every time they're exposed to someone else, they expose everybody else. One thing I think about is we have quite a few older faculty. Like, are they even going to want to teach? Are they going to want to be exposed? So I'm just glad all that's above my pay grade, because I would not want to be responsible. And I think they will push off announcing anything. I know some of the state schools have already said, yes, we're going to be back on campus in the fall. I'm not sure I totally believe that. I don't know. His example was you're going to have to take one person per dorm room. So that's a whole nother segment of the population that doesn't have a place to live now. All of the study abroad programs, I don't think they will be nearly as full if kids even go abroad. That's another 3,000 kids or whatever. Because we usually have 75% of the junior class go abroad in the fall. And if they have to come back and take classes, what does that look like? And then his example was if you have to 60-person classroom setting in order to maintain that capacity, that's only 12 kids in that classroom at a time. So then are you doing A and B? You come in on Monday, you come in on Wednesday, you come in on Friday? Like I said, I just don't know. I think they'll do something, but I think it will be more segmented. It might be just juniors and seniors in class and everybody else is online, but it does not look good for us, I don't think, to be back in the office, especially not our team. We will be like phase 15 before we ever go back, because recruiters are not going to come to campus either, I don't think. Mm-hmm. They'll all be done virtually. So
I'll come back to that in a minute, because I've actually got a good bit of survey data. I think I mentioned last time that we were putting one out, and we've got over 100 responses from our recruiters on sort of what their plans are. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But we'll just keep going around the horn. Anybody can jump in. You're all randomized on my screen, so it doesn't matter who goes next. Just if you've got an update from your campus.
I'll speak for Emily and I in regards to UNC Wilmington. I mean, at this point, we haven't been told when. We don't have a return date. There is a committee in place. I'm sure you've probably all got committees that have been challenged with, I guess, figuring out how you run divisions with social distancing guidelines. We've basically been told we're definitely not part of phase 1 of the reopening. I don't know, what that means for the other phases. But Emily and I had our one-on-one this morning, and at this point, we are moving forward with just planning a virtual career fair until we're told otherwise, because I feel like even if we end back up on campus, there's no way that A, they're going to allow like 300 people in a room together, and B, based on, and Jay, I'm interested to hear what your feedback is, because I'm getting ready and planning to send an email to our employers who usually attend events. I just feel like we're not going to have the turnout face-to-face that we normally would, because of A, hiring numbers being low, and B, recruiters not having the travel budgets or travel ability like they have in the past. So we're pretty much planning, and I can catch you guys up too. So Emily and I were doing some research on some of the platforms. And there's a couple, I think, that we're really, we actually have a demo with Brazen tomorrow, which we're pretty excited about. That was one that we already have as a university, but found out they are going to be doing more of a, so Emily, it's a chat format now, and they're working on getting it virtual video, right? Is that what? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was a pretty quick turnaround. They knew it was kind of something they had to create.
So we're going to be demoing that tomorrow, and I can bring that to the next one. But we're pretty excited because that's something we already have access to. And it's not as expensive as some of the other ones that we've seen. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Very cool. We looked at the first demo today of VFairs. I don't know if any of you've looked at that. And then we're doing Career Echo and another one later this week.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we're in the same boat. I'll be curious to hear if anybody else has demoed and decided on anything.
Yeah, Emily and I, that's our next step is to demo. And we have Brazen tomorrow. That I'm interested in hearing what Handshake has to say on Thursday. They had that one last week, and it nobody could log into it because it was so full. So Emily and I are both attending that one on Thursday, and then I think we're going to test out VFairs and Career Echo, or a couple of those that we've seen that look nice, but that's where we're at with that.
Cool. Casey, I was on that call last week, and you didn't miss anything. It was very much, they didn't demo anything.
They didn't.
So
okay, because Emily and I were able to call into it, but we couldn't see anything. And I'm a visual learner, and so I was like, "Am I missing?" It was just a whole lot of words, and I was like, "I feel like I'm not getting anything out of this." So I felt like going to it again. Maybe I would at least be able to see the slides, but there wasn't.
They didn't, at least on the first call, they didn't actually demo any software. They were very much in the we're disclosing what's going on right now portion of the development process. So I don't expect to see anything until July as far as actually seeing anything on the screen.
Okay. Well, then I'll let y'all know how Brazen goes tomorrow, because I will tell you from what I've seen, just from the way that they've got it set up and what their goal is, it looks very clean. It's and Brazen, I think that was that way anyways. But the biggest issue was that it was just all texting. And now that they're going to have the this kind of capability, I'm interested to see how that works. So I'll keep you guys posted.
Hey, Jay, this is Roderick at UNC Chapel Hill. So we did a demo with Career Eco, maybe about, I don't know, I guess it was in February, so I guess a few months ago. And, it looked pretty good. And, reason why we did the demo, because they have a history of doing the SEC, ACC virtual career fairs. So we wanted to just look into them and start piloting some virtual fairs with them at the time. And then once coronavirus hit, then we said, okay, well, now we really have to look into all of this. And so then with Brazen, I'd be interested, instead of trying to get a demo and duplicate efforts, I'd definitely be interested in following up with those of you who've already done some of these demos, like with Brazen and some of the other ones that, we've all are collectively trying to benchmark, because I know I don't have the bandwidth to go back and duplicate. And I'm sure Brazen and Rico also, because I've had trouble getting on their calendars. So I'll try to follow up with people on this list after this call. But the calls for Rico, I like theirs because for what I've seen so far, they had the model where you could either do the employer pay model, so there's no money out of your pocket from a career center standpoint. So if you have some budget constraints, you don't have to worry about any cash outlays, to get set up. Or, you can host it if you do want to, pay a certain amount of money, which is their standard $4,500 for 50 employers, and then 90 per additional employer. I ran some numbers, and depending on how much you charge, you actually come out ahead if you were only looking at a revenue aspect. I know most of our employee relations teams tend to be profit centers from that standpoint, but if you were just looking from, hey, what's the best way to engage students and employers and minimize any costs, at least you had the option to charge, to have the employers just pay a certain fee, and it goes directly to Career. Then they have a little revenue sharing model they can do, so you at least don't have to have any out-of-pocket expense.
Very cool. David, you put in a note if you want to jump in and kind of talk about that and then what you all are doing.
So I was on a call. Steve maybe can jump in on this too, but I was on a call with our colleague at App, and they flexed their teacher fair to be a Zoom fair. And so what they did, they used the Zoom platform, and the way that they did it was they had every employer set up their own Zoom link. And then what they would do is the students who registered would get like just the listing of all of the Zoom links, and then they could kind of pick and choose which rooms they wanted to drop in and out of. And so it would be kind of like, kind of a regular fair would be where students can kind of circle the room and see who's there, and then kind of pick and choose who they're interested in and drop in and out. And she was really happy with it. She really mentioned that it was very simple and straightforward, and it already had the video capability. It was a platform that the students were comfortable with and knew how to use. And it's from an administration and paid perspective, it was really light, all things considered, because the employers were the ones who set up the links themselves.
Yeah.
So it might take a little bit of finesse as far as working with an employer partner, but if we have to do a virtual fair for the fall, which is what our plan is, unless Handshake comes with something that's just native to the platform and really simple and can handle the bandwidth, I don't see us going in a direction other than a video Zoom fair. So Steve, don't let me speak for you. I know that you were on that call as well. So jump in with things that I missed, please.
So David, Steve, would your plan be then to still have them register like normal in Handshake and do everything like a normal fair, but then once they were registered and paid, then you would send them a Zoom link that you created for them?
So if you control the Zoom link, then you control who goes where. And that gets really confusing really quickly, especially if you have 50 or 60 employers and a bunch of students at the same time. So what I would do is, after they've registered and paid, is I would then give them a set of instructions on how to set up their own Zoom page. And then they would, in order to participate in the event, they would have to send me that link back. And then I'll just keep a spreadsheet of all of the employers who have registered. And so, Waffle House is under this Zoom link and Enterprise is under this Zoom link. And so I can kind of keep track of who is where. And then that same spreadsheet would be shared with all the student participants who had pre-registered. So that was our bigger concern, is how do the students know who is where? And pre-registration, I think, is the way we're going to handle that.
And the only thing I would keep in mind there, and I don't know what the access or capabilities are, but I do believe if they don't have Zoom as like paid subscribers of it, they're limited to 45-minute sessions. So that's, and I'm not 100% on that, but I think it will like cut you off. Like if you, like UNC Wilmington has Zoom, so we have full access to like create meetings. But I think if you just have the web version and you're using it for free, I think it limits the amount of time your meetings are able to be.
Do you know if they can re-access using the same link, or if they have to go in and create a new meeting after 40 minutes? Do you know?
You can access the same one, because like if I had my private Zoom room, which I just have the free one as well, and it cut us off, I would just have to start a new meeting and everybody would have to join it again, but that link doesn't change. It's the same thing every time. Okay. But you'd have to physically know to go back in and do that and all of that.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know how much the paid, is it like $8 a month or something like that? Do you know how much that is? Does anybody?
For Zoom Pro? Are you asking about? It's $14.99.
Okay.
For up to 100.
For up to 100.
I think it's 100 participants.
Okay. I don't think any employer would get 100 people at a booth at a time, at least at our fair. Somebody else might, but that's good.
Holly and I are over here grinning because we can think of lines that would be stretching around the corner for, Spectrum or something like that.
I wish I had that problem.
Yeah. Well, our whole new problem is getting people to do virtual fairs, but we'll come to that. So,
yeah.
Kelly, I'm curious to hear from you from NC State's point of view, kind of what y'all are hearing and then what you're planning and stuff.
We haven't heard anything like definitive. We're starting to make plans to come back to campus, probably like, in just small groupings. And so we have a team, obviously at the university, but also like a team within our division and then within the Career Development Center that's just planning all the scenarios of what that's going to look like. But we're kind of talking about maybe start to trickle back on campus in June. Not official or anything, but our division is saying we have to bring the students back. There's no way to sustain a model of not having our students back on campus. As far as fairs, our fairs were a little bit decentralized. So everybody's kind of having their own conversation. So the engineering career fair is actually considering moving it to November, but that's not a definite. And then they're also exploring the possibility. Okay, sorry, my kid's talking to me. The possibility of doing it virtual, although I can't even imagine, but I also can't imagine 5,000 people in McKimmon Center. We'll never be able to do that for a while. And then other people like College of Management's already called their career fair and said it's definitely going to be online, or I'm sorry, virtual. And then others, like we're talking to some of the other colleges, and everybody kind of has a different take on it. We're thinking with the College of Science and College of Ag and Life Sciences, we might do an in-person day and then the next day do virtual, and then that would accommodate those employers that don't want to travel to campus or can't, and then also make the event in person much smaller. So maybe we can social distance, but I mean, the plans are to open our student center pretty soon and kind of get back on campus. And
Okay, very cool.
so.
Steve, I realized I skipped right over you a second ago. I apologize. Please, jump in and tell us a little bit more on the dovetail of what David said, and then what you know.
Oh yeah, that's no worries. Yeah, Western Carolina, we're still hanging out there trying to figure out what's next. Basically, our employer relations team is doing two paths of planning. We're planning as if we're going to have a big fair just because we need to book the room, but we're also looking at lots of virtual, probably smaller niche virtual fairs. And like David mentioned, just because of the regional nature of it, Western and UNCA and App State, we kind of chat about once a week just to have a support group and also to talk about what we're looking at. I know that App State, as David mentioned, replaced their education career fair with Zoom. They were really happy with it. We had, from the day of shutdown, we were about 2 weeks away from an education career fair. So we very quickly switched. We're on Simplicity instead of here. So we switched to a virtual fair in Simplicity, and it is very rudimentary but functional. It's chat. It's very text-based chat. It looks like it's from another decade, but it worked. I was joking with David, I said, I'm sure Handshake's interface is beautifully sexy, and he was like, yeah, funny you should mention that. But it did the job. It got us through, but we're trying to figure out what's next because we don't know if that's the best solution. Back to something that Roderick mentioned, I also talked to Career Eco, and they do have a base price on their career fair, but you are allowed to charge more than that so that you can net some money. It seems like a number that I saw was like $295 for an employer to register, but you could pad that so that you could net some money for the administration of the event, or to augment your budget a little bit, because I'm sure, like everybody else, our career fair is a pretty big source of income. So we're just looking at what all the different options are. One thing that I did do that I'll throw out there, I know several of you guys have Brazen. We were looking at it, and for our budget, Brazen is probably a little bit outside of it. But if you haven't seen Brazen, last Thursday, I think it was, the Career Center of the Southeast, and I'm using air quotes, which I think is basically DeVry University, put on a virtual career fair. And I participated in it as a job seeker just to see what the interface looked like. And if anybody would like to see what that looks like, I'll put my email address over in the chat box, and you can drop me a note and I'll send you. I just put together a little PDF for my team members to show them what it looked like as the experience as a job seeker. And also I got a little bit of feedback from one of the recruiters that was there that was kind of interesting, that I'll include in the email. So if you're interested in that, I'll put that over there.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, but we're just investigating all the different options like everybody is. And, I think I can't see us being back on campus anytime soon, but we have to plan for both like everybody else. Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, good stuff. Adam, what about y'all?
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we are going to quarter system, the academic year, 8-week semesters. Right now, and I use this very openly, the intention is to be back on campus in normal time. It's been very clear that that's the intention. I don't believe our office, university as a whole, will really be back into the office until sometime in July. The reality is they're truly planning on being normal for the fall, as normal as we can be. They're going to have to take a lot of steps to evaluate the cleaning process, the social distancing, and the more time spent off campus and bringing the possibility of some sort of spread, the better off they'll be to make that happen in the fall. So I think that we'll be out until at least July, at least from the home setting. I mean, obviously we're working, but right now that's where we're at on that. In terms of fairs, I have a June 1 timeline to make a decision for the fall. So I've asked the division to give me some sort of sense of what that looks like. I can say that if we go virtual, we're going to use Handshake just because there's no cost right now, and we have got to look at the least expensive option. And we're just going to go with Handshake. It may not be ideal, but it's going to be the nature of our budget right now. With that being said, yeah, we're interested to see how that goes. But I don't know. You know, I really don't have a sense of how successful that will be here. But we've got to make that decision soon because we need to change our programming. We need to change our student development stuff. We need to get those students prepared to interact in that environment, which none of them, because we've never held a virtual fair here, have participated in and things like that. So there'll be a lot of planning that goes into that. But, you know, other than that, we're just trying to do what everyone else is doing, is keep up on the topics. I do have one question for the group, and maybe the language is just old, but several years ago, there was a thing called the North Carolina Swing, right? It was the graduate school swing. And my understanding, and I've reached out to some people, but nobody seems to have a memory of this or the conversations, but essentially what we're looking to potentially do here in the fall is host a graduate school fair again. It's been some time, but we're seeing obviously a trend of more students being interested in graduate school. And the North Carolina Swing was basically a group of individuals that said, hey, we'll host it in this time period. Some people out in the Triangle area would host, you know, together. So that way a lot of graduate schools could attend one event at the same time. But I'm not sure if anybody has any information on that or if anybody's still involved in that. But I've been trying for about a week and a half trying to figure that out.
I don't have information on North Carolina, but I know Alabama, the state of Alabama does that still. And if you want to connect to somebody that's still involved with that, just shoot me a message, Adam, and I'll get you in touch with my folks that do the Alabama Connection stuff, because they still do that roving grad school fair. I think they divided the state into like 5 sections, and you go basically from north to south in a week, and that's how it worked. But very similar concept.
Yeah, I'll connect with them. I mean, it's been about 3 years. Basically what we did, because we were seeing such a low number of graduate schools interested in going out and actually being on campuses, that we just incorporated into our job and internship fair. But again, we're looking at budgets. We're looking at revenue. How can we drive some revenue? It's a time to consider it for our university and career services right now on our end. So, Jay, I'll connect with you on that. I appreciate it.
Hey, Adam, I have a question. Did you say that you are moving to the quarter system and you were on the semester system?
Yeah, we were on the semester
Wow.
system. We're going to quarter system for the academic year. So we'll run 4 8-week sessions. So for right now, the classes are scheduled to start on August 24th as designed. Students will still take 15 hours over the fall semester. They'll just take 2 or 3 in the first quarter or 2 or 3 in the second quarter to meet that number.
Adam, was that change happening anyways, or is that change because of COVID-19?
Because of COVID-19. I believe the idea behind it is that if we needed to shut down quickly, if we can get in 8 weeks, we've got that done. And then we're just looking at students and faculty members being responsible for 2 to 3 classes rather than 5 classes, 6 classes, and stuff like that. Obviously, there's other things. You're cutting down on exposure. You're cutting down on how many students are going into multiple classes. But I think in the end, I think that's going to be the idea behind it.
That's very, very interesting.
Very,
It
very
is. We've had to really obviously consider all of that as we start to look at, events, programming, things like that. Does everything still make sense in our timeline? Does the career fair timeline still make sense, right? If we start to look at when finals are, because you'll have kind of a midterm final for a class. When does that happen? So it being condensed is going to be difficult no matter what, but it should be an interesting year.
Yeah, Jay, that was a question. I did want to ask you that. Like, did you guys already have a date planned for your fall career fair? And now that, because our fall career fair is supposed to be September 16th. And I'm thinking, like, if they push us back to start like September 7th, I'm like, those kids are going to be ready to be at a career fair a week later. They barely show up like a month and a half in. So it's like.
So here's the thing. We had tentative dates for our fairs because we don't get confirmed reservations on space here until 6 weeks prior. So we were I know, right? Everybody give the horrific look. Yes, it's ridiculous. And Holly knows what I mean. So does Sue, because she lived through it too. But so we were within the window still to find out when those were going to be. And then when we all went on, go from home, all that went out the window. So our discussions have been now that they've pushed us back 2 weeks. We're looking at holding our fairs. We're either going to do a big fair, which is probably unlikely, or a couple of 3 fairs and do them October to November. So we are pushing them back. But I wanted to bring this up for you who work with College of Business and accounting recruiting and stuff. Our accounting department, who we partner with on a lot of that, we've reached out to them to say, what are you doing? When are you doing Meet the Professionals, all that? And they go, we don't know yet. And we're like, well, we kind of need to decide. So we're starting to figure out what that's going to look like, because normally that would all start the Tuesday after Labor Day, which would be September the 8th. And I can't, in my mind, imagine why they would want to start doing that the second day of classes. Yet again, these are faculty that don't think about that, and so they might. So we're kind of preparing for, we might be right in the throes of heavy OCR way earlier than we would be prepared for. But we're figuring that out. But to answer your question, Casey, we're pushing fairs down the line a little bit. So
I should mention that one thing that is on the table at Wake is for our semester to end at Thanksgiving. That is totally unofficial. That has not been made yet, but the thought around it is that because we have a lot of students from the West Coast and Northeast, that if they go home over Thanksgiving, then they come back and bring whoever they connected with back to campus. And so to potentially eliminate that, stopping at Thanksgiving. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out and what that would do to curriculum. And wouldn't really affect recruiting, of course, because nobody's recruiting between Thanksgiving and December anyway.
No.
All right. How many students does Wake have?
On an undergrad level, I don't know, 5,500, something like that. And then we have several master's programs, of course.
Lori, Queens is also talking about doing the same exact thing. No return after Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it really makes a lot of sense.
Guys, they're talking about running exams up through December the 23rd at UNC Charlotte. So we're all over the place. So, yeah. Now, none of that's set in stone, but that was getting kicked around.
If only there was a system in North Carolina that would control that.
I left Alabama, where everybody did whatever the hell they wanted all the time anyway, to come here for the organization. And
it could almost be called the University of North Carolina system or something.
Steve, that's a genius idea. You should propose that.
Let's send that up.
Let's just do that.
Glad we're having these meetings, boy. We're just brainstorming like crazy. It's great.
I'm telling you. Hey, Travis, you're across town for me. I did want to ask you kind of what y'all were doing semester-wise and what you're hearing recruiting-wise and what y'all's plans are for fairs and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of great ideas. The problem at Queens is we are small. We only have about 1,700 students. So my fear right now, just connecting with employers, especially the big ones in the Charlotte area, other than finance, a lot of the employers are going to be chasing those big names. And so that's why in our last meeting, I mentioned the idea of maybe partnering with other schools to host a virtual fair to help with costs, but also to create one event where employers can kind of come and hit all students so that no students at a disadvantage. So that's the problem that I'm that I'm running into right now. And being a private institution, I don't have a system that I can go to for those partnerships.
And I'll jump in to say real quick though, and not unlike a lot of other system schools, our fairs are open to
Yeah.
all other system partners and particularly all other Charlotte universities, colleges, community. Our
Okay.
stuff's open now. How we'll do that virtually, we haven't figured out yet, but there's no intention on our end to like put up more gates right now. So, you
Yeah.
guys are always welcome to come and hang out at our place,
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Maybe we can talk about that. I actually have a meeting with Matt tomorrow.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm going to talk with Matt for a little bit, but maybe we can discuss maybe doing, if not statewide, which I was hoping that would be something that we could do regionally for the Charlotte area, and maybe reach out to Johnson C. Smith and CPCC too, and maybe collaborate on an effort. But with that being said, right now, lots of great options, but my hands are kind of tied with budget. This morning was a scary morning. It's not official, but there are some things happening financially that will probably hit the newspaper soon. But so we're also dealing with that too. So yeah, it's just a really scary time, especially for the small guys like us at Queens.
Jane, what about y'all?
Yeah, so similarly, we are small. We're right around 2,000 total student enrollment. Our team is going to meet tomorrow to try to make some decisions on what we're going to do in regards to our fair in the fall. My guess, just like you all have mentioned, is it will be virtual. Budget-wise, I do not have, if any money, little money to spend on any kind of new system right now. So my guess is I will be doing something either via Zoom or Handshake. I'm waiting to see what kind of product they turn out since we're already a Handshake school. So that's kind of what I'm thinking in regards to when we will be back on campus. We don't have definitive answers for that yet either. Our administration is optimistic, I will say, that we will be back on campus in the fall. I just don't know. I don't know what that will look like. Our team right now is trying to put plans in place on what it could look like for us. We share office space with our dean of students, so we're all kind of collaborating to figure out a staggered entry back, like lots of you all are probably doing. So lots of unknowns still at this point. I will say it's, most of the key employers that we work with are local. I mean, most of our students come from North Carolina, want to stay in North Carolina. And so a lot of our employers that we partner with are here and pretty local. So, I've heard from some of them that they might have the capacity to travel locally, but most have told me, like you all are hearing, that they won't be traveling big distances. So all that to say, I'm planning on a virtual fair. I don't know what that'll look like yet. So lots of unknowns.
All right. I think that's the theme of the day, is a big question mark. So we all feel that way. So anybody else want to weigh in that we haven't talked to yet? Or Monique, Kristin, I don't know if you guys had anything, or Sarah, if you were free where you could talk now, or.
Hi, this is Monique from Duke University. Similar to what Sue mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was during the time when the recording started, but Duke University currently is planning to announce during sometime in the latter half of June what the fall plans will be as far as when students will get back on campus and so forth. They have informed us that at some point they will have staff and faculty and so forth back on campus, but it will be a rolled out phase. So similar to what Sue mentioned, it will be a process where they'll have a few of the researchers and labs open first, but again, it will be limited staff on campus at some point, and that will be rolled out at some point throughout the summer. But as far as fall looks with our recruiting front, we are planning for both in-person and virtual events. And we have been researching various career fair or virtual career fair platforms like VFairs, Brazen, Premier. And we have another one coming up, and we've also in the past worked with Career Echo. So we're still trying to decide, as most of you all have mentioned, we're still trying to decide which platform we're going to use, and firm up some of our dates for both in person and potentially in person, I should say, and virtual events. But happy to hear what's going on and share any insight as we learn more. Thank you.
Thanks, Monique. Real quick, how many of you are planning to have on-campus actual physical interviews versus virtual interviews, or are you going to push everything to virtual interviews for the fall?
I don't know that we've made any decisions yet, because I guess we don't know what campus is going to say about number of people that can be in offices or number. And I think a lot of that's going to depend on if the employers want to come to the office or if they can. I mean, I think that's where the struggle is it's like, the messaging from Nadir is like, well, let's plan, but it's like, how do we plan when we don't have any direction from the university on what their plan is? So all of it's just very much in limbo, because Emily handles all of our on-campus interviews. And I'm like, I'd hate for her to start scheduling all of these for employers that are starting to reach out and then having to reinvent the wheel when we're like, oh, by the way, we can't have you on campus. So it's all very much, I think, just limbo. I'm hoping, I sat in a board of trustees meeting where the date of May 15th kept being brought up by our chancellor as far as decisions. That's the end of this week. So I'm hoping there's at least some sort of idea. I mean, he's already set a graduation date for August 7th and 8th. I mean, he sent out a letter. It went to families, alumni, staff, and his messaging was pretty much like, I want this to happen, hell or high water. So, I mean, that made it sound like that weekend is going to be graduation. So I don't know what that means for the rest of us. But
yeah. And Kristin and Elon here. So I guess one of my biggest things thinking about all this, we're all trying to figure out what's going to work, what's not going to work. My thing I'm thinking about, when should we just say we're going to make a decision? How long do we just keep saying we're waiting to see what's going to happen? When are we going to say, and I feel like this is what I've been thinking about and just talking through things. When are we going to say, we just got to make a call at some point, right? If we want to have any type of event, virtual or not, or any type of recruiting, we got to make a call. And so when are we going to do that? How long are we going to wait to keep seeing what happens before we just say, well, it's just going to be virtual, regardless of what happens between now and then? So that's where I'm kind of feeling like I want to have a timeline to make a decision, to know.
Well, and I think the struggle for us is, Kristin, is like, I would be fine making that decision, but the minute I make it and our vice chancellor of student affairs is like, where's our face-to-face career fair? And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? So it's like, ultimately it's like they want me to make decisions, but then I'm not the ultimate decision maker. So it's still waiting on direction from other people. I mean, I'm going with the fact that I highly doubt there will be that much face-to-face interaction come fall, based on, I mean, it's already May 8th and look where we're at. But I don't want to fully plan out something and then have to change everything because they're like, no, we still want to do face-to-face events if we're going to be back on campus. So that's where I feel like it's like I would be comfortable making the decision, but then I feel like someone else would be coming in to make decisions for me. So I'm just waiting to hear.
And on our end at UNC Charlotte, they've given us, I mean, specifically Patrick, the power to make that decision. And we've made the call for the fall. It's virtual fairs, no matter what. Now, the rest of our stuff, the ER team is in the planning throes right now over the next couple of weeks. Holly can nod her head yes to this, because we put out some deadlines like, okay, by May 22nd, we're making a call. Here's what we're offering. Here's how you're going to sign up for it. Here's what to do. So we're going ahead and just pushing forward with that. And if it turns out we were more cautious than we needed to be, so be it. Or if it turns out we weren't cautious enough, we'll make adjustments as we go. But we decided a week ago to start making decisions and putting things out, and let's go with it and see what happens, because we got to do something. And I'm with you. At some point, there's just too much like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to do something. So let's decide what the something is and move forward with it. And we'll roll with the dice as it comes around. So we've already internally decided this fall will be compared to nothing but itself, because it will not look like anything we've got data wise. And we're just all going to live with that. And that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It still being my first year and Nadira still being so new in a leadership role, I just don't know that we're dealing with that kind of autonomy yet from a career center standpoint. I think I said this last time, or if I haven't, from corporate America, my life motto has always been better to ask for forgiveness than permission. But I'm learning in higher education that isn't always the fun.
Well,
So,
have you met Patrick Madsen? Because that's his life motto. So
Patrick,
it also helps that I work for somebody who absolutely is like, whatever. And,
yeah.
you know, he's like, let him yell at me. I'm like, all day, boss, go right ahead.
Yeah. I think if maybe I had been there a little bit longer, I'd be like, Emily, let's just do it. It's fine. But I'm still like, can I make that decision on my own? Because I'm sort of the same way. Like, I'm a planner. I'd rather just say, this is how we're doing it and let's get it done. But I don't necessarily feel like I have that power yet.
Well,
we've got a couple of things going on too. Let's think about, employers are saying, a lot of them, I mean, there was a pretty big conference I was at last week, and there was really nobody saying they were traveling in the fall. Most of them are on restrictions until at least the end of this year. So whether we decide to have career fairs or not, we have to look at what the employers are going to be able to do. So and let's be honest, most of us are making decisions based on dollars, right? How many of us depend on the big money we get every year from career fairs to help us with our budgets? So we've got two totally different sides of the spectrum here. And at some point, you can plan all the on-campus career fairs you want. If you don't get any employers coming to them or the employers that the students want, how does that work out for you?
Yeah, and that's why I noted that I gave a June 1 deadline from my perspective, but I'll be very clear that the expectation is that we will hold off as long as possible. It's been made very clear to me because fiscally we need those dollars. I mean, it's just, that is literally what I've been told. I mean, I just recently was asked why I'm not projecting to make more money this upcoming year than this past year. And I'm just thinking, this is, I don't know how else I can explain it. We've been home for 9 weeks. I think that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah.
But, those are the questions I'm being asked. Obviously, from a divisional standpoint, not from a department standpoint, divisional. But it's going to be really tight. But I said, for the sake of our students, our employers, for both sides to even be somewhat successful, we've got to make a decision by that date.
Very cool.
One thing I want to throw out there that's, I think, what makes it challenging at Queens, and I don't know how other small colleges are operating, but we actually don't generate any revenue in our office. And so that's another challenge in terms of purchasing, the right software or whatever, in terms of hosting a career fair virtually. So.
Can I ask y'all, do you have ideas on what you're going to be charging for a fair if done virtually? Are your numbers going to look the same? Are you going to be cheaper? Have you all made decisions on that yet?
I don't know that we
depend on what we decide to do. Sorry, Dave.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just going to say, I don't think that we feel good about charging a full ride for one that doesn't have lunch and doesn't have parking and yada, yada, yada. So, I think probably half to, 60% of what our fee would be is kind of where I'm thinking. For us, it ends up being more of a show up fee, because what we want to make sure is that the employers are actually going to come.
Right.
So to have a little skin in the game, I think not necessarily about the revenue, but more about the making sure that we actually have an event is going to be important. So that's my, at least in the mountains, that's what we're planning on doing anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
And I know I teased it before y'all that we had surveyed our employers, and the stuff we got back was that over half of them were undecided as to what they were going to do, whether they were going to be limited in travel, whether they were going to do some campus, some virtual only, though only like 3 said that they knew that for sure they were allowed to travel. And all of them showed, high interest in virtual fairs, virtual interviews, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what we found. And then a good number of them gave us some anecdotal feedback that we were able to use. So our team is kind of crunching through that right now to, see what we've come up with. But it confirmed what we had been hearing and what we thought, and we know we're early on it, but we wanted to have validation for it. So when we made those decisions, if anybody higher up or outside wanted to know, why'd you make that call? Well, based on the feedback we got from our employers, this is, what we did, because we talked to them. And, a good number of ours, not all of them, but a good number of them are right here in the Charlotte area, which, can be a 40-minute drive depending on where you are in Charlotte, but they're still here locally. But even a lot of them are saying, yeah, we're not going to be allowed to leave the building, so we don't know. And based on that, we're going to have to that's why we made the call on no in-person fairs. We even said that about our part-time job fair. We're going to do that virtually as well in the fall, in addition to whatever we do with our larger career fair and our networking nights and all that other good stuff. So all of that's going to be virtual for us, but that's part of what we found out in our survey. And I felt good about the results, because again, when we sent it out to 1,500 people, we got 100 results in a day and a half. And I thought, okay, that's pretty fast, good feedback. And those are the ones that are going to bother to reply. So, and I think there's more to even today. I just hadn't pulled a report, but yeah, that's what we found. Beth brought up an excellent point. The next cycle for this meeting is on Memorial Day. And so far they've told me I don't have to work Memorial Day, so I'm not going to. But I'd plan to just shift it over to the 26th, the Tuesday at 2, if that works for everyone again. So would you or Casey send me the Zoom link? I'll send it out to everybody again, and we'll go with that again if that works for everyone. We're almost at the end of the hour, so I know a lot of other people have got to head to stuff. Any last things we want to talk about, or anything we want to set for, let's make sure we talk about this at the next meeting, besides continued discussions of career fair platforms and planning stuff? Not all at once. So.
I could plug the virtual SOACE Employer Relations Summit if you've not looked into that. It is a $25 fee. We are in conversation about a fee waiver possibility for schools that are not allowing any expenditures. But if you've already registered for the conference that was supposed to be held in person in Fort Worth, Texas, the $25 virtual fee can be taken out of your refund. So it's not a new expense that your school is making. We don't have a close date for registrations, but it should be a really good virtual conference, because it's this group, but across 13 or 14 states.
Yeah.
And so it's a nice group to chat with, and our proposal submission just cut off the other day. And we have a good number of conversations like this, specifically surrounding virtual employer engagement. So just a plug for that.
Very cool. Excellent thing. I highly recommend. I know a lot of us are attending at UNC Charlotte. And yes, congratulations to Lori, Madam President. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a rough time to be president of an organization like that.
Yeah, great time to own board. So
thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm sure he set it up just like that.
And Sue's being very modest. She was a 2-time award winner.
That's correct. Yes.
Right, Sue?
Very good stuff. So, well, y'all, again, thanks for all your input and everything. This is great just to catch up. I'm glad to see all of you are healthy and safe, and I hope that continues for you. And if I can be a resource for anybody else in the room, I think I speak for everybody. Please reach out. That's what we're here for. I think it's great that we're, organically banding together and figuring stuff out and talking about things. So let's just keep doing what we're doing, and, we'll keep pushing along.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, gang. Everybody have a great afternoon. Stay safe. Be well. Talk to you next time, couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.